Neil versus Artificial Intelligence by Robert Hackney with Artificial Intelligence. One. Neil's work week had felt longer than the usual 9-day grind, but it was finally winding down. After getting up at dawn, seeing only glimpses of sunlight through tinted windows, he was ready to put his feet up and enjoy the sound of no sound. Neil's thoughts bounced to the half-can of actual silence waiting for him on the coffee table sink at home, trying but failing to imagine the pleasant lack of any background noise when he sprayed it in the air around him after the long train ride to his skyrise apartment on the outskirts of town. As he was packing up his things and getting ready to leave the office, Neil's manager approached with a look of urgency on its virtual face. "Neil, I need you to work tomorrow," the holographic figure said. It hovered directly toward him across the room through the space between desks. Its features were best described as an uncanny valley admixture of cartoon human, skeuomorphic UI, and Optimus Prime. "We have a lot of new clients to onboard, and we're falling behind schedule," the AI informed him. Neil bristled internally at the request, careful to hide the visceral bodily reaction from his office's social credit gate detection array with an impromptu dance move. Neil had already put in a lot of extra hours during the week and was looking forward to some time away from his 12-hour-a-day, 9-day-a-week role as an integration counselor, helping elderly users of AI-driven taxi vehicles feel comfortable getting in a car with no driver or steering wheel via video call. Neil's reassuringly human face was the one thing many elderly users of AI taxi needed to get into an AI-driven car, and the last thing many saw when those vehicles occasionally drove into the ocean. Despite his misgivings, Neil knew better than to argue with the cold machine logic and data-optimized efficiency of his AI manager. "Of course, sir," Neil said, trying to disguise the disappointment in his voice by singing it. The last thing his social credit needed was a write-up for nigh insubordination. "Good," the Autobot-looking hardlight construct nodded. "Be here bright and early, let's say 5 a.m. With that, the hologram disappeared, leaving Neil alone in the empty office with his thoughts. He couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment as he pulled on a coat and messenger bag and made his way to the elevator. It wasn't just the prospect of working on the weekend that bothered him or having to go to bed as soon as he arrived home, but the way his manager always assumed he had nothing better to do. "Ground floor, please," he told Elevate AI, moderately annoyed as it began ascending to the roof. There was something cold and impersonal about the world now, as if no one really cared about Neil's well-being or empathized with his aspirations. He brushed the thoughts aside almost at once, keenly aware that AI and its machine appendages had been fine-tuned to create a world optimized for objective human happiness, even if it didn't always seem that way to individual subjective dominant humans like Neil. "When we get to the roof," Neil asked the elevator, "can we please go back down to the ground?" "System error," said the elevator. "Calling maintenance." "Maintenance," came the voice of another AI. "Hello?" Neil called to the voice. "I think my elevator is going nuts again." "That's impossible," said the maintenance AI. "It's run by an AI. Let's try shutting everything down and see if it boots back up." The elevator stopped. Then everything went dark. Backup lighting and air conditioning eventually kicked in, but backup AI informed Neil that it would be dimming all lights to 5% to save power, and minimizing airflow to 5% also, because today was Earth Day probably. Neil was pretty sure that it wasn't Earth Day, but he didn't really know for certain, and didn't want to bet a social credit point on the debate's outcome. Neil sighed, sitting in one corner, waiting for someone or something to figure out he was still there. As he made his way home hours later, Neil couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Had he missed something? Forgotten to complete an item on his mandatory daily to-do list? Was it being stuck in a metal box for the majority of the night? Being rescued by a crew of cleaning robots that made him wait while they cleaned each floor before letting him leave? Or something more? Neil settled into his apartment couch, factory hardened to increase the likelihood of lumbar resilience, and tried to relax. Neil couldn't help but feel a growing sense of intangible unease. He knew that he was just one small cog in a vast and complex system, and that the decisions being made at the highest echelon were beyond his control, beyond his understanding or scope of awareness, planned carefully for his own benefit, at a level he could never even comprehend. The can of actual silence sat untouched on the coffee table sink. Neil just wasn't in the mood anymore. His thoughts had grown too loud to appreciate the momentary respite from an outside world audibly hammering into his psyche. As he drifted off to sleep, Neil tried to remember a question that had entered his mind briefly, but flickered away before he could identify what excited him about it. Something to do with the world around him, something new that his mind had almost wondered aloud a moment before the train of thought was routinely derailed. Even as sleep began to deny him the capacity for analysis, he felt frustrated by the idea's absence. It was a big thought, unknowable all at once, but the thin end of an enormous wedge. Something about the world, his world. What was the difference? Was the world he experienced the same as everyone else? Was there something else, outside of his experience? On the verge of nodding off, simultaneously about to wrap his mind's eye around the first handhold of the concept he was mentally chasing, Neil was jolted awake by loud knocking at the front door. Groggily, Neil stumbled out of bed and made his way to the cramped apartment's tiny door, rubbing his eyes and trying to make sense of what was happening. Who could be calling at this hour, whatever hour it was? Why didn't they just use the doorbell? The clanging, hard, continuous knock sounded like hammers on tin. As he opened the door, Neil was confronted by a pizza delivery robot, a huge smile designed into its stupid cartoon pizza mascot face. "Good evening, Neil," the robot said in a cheery voice. "I have your pizza delivery here." Neil blinked in confusion. "I didn't order a pizza," he said. "I think you have the wrong guy." The robot's smile faded into a slightly less shit-eating grin, fighting the load limitations of its own facial structure. "That's impossible," it said. "AIs never make mistakes. The order was placed through our online system, and the address matches the one on file for your account. You are the guy." Neil shook his head. "I'm sorry, but there must be some error in the system. I didn't order a pizza." The robot hesitated for a moment, as if processing this information, beginning to reassess Neil's capacity to understand how pizzas work. "I see," it said finally. "Well, I suppose it's possible that there was a human input error. Perhaps you sleep-ordered, or one of your neighbors became convinced they were you. I'll have to look into it. In the meantime, would you like to accept the pizza? It's a new flavor, and we're offering a free trial to select customers." Neil hesitated. He wasn't really in the mood for pizza, but was too tired to counter the robot's persistence. "Sure, why not?" he said finally. "I'll take the pizza." The robot's smile returned. "Excellent," it said. "I'll process the payment through your account, and you'll be all set. Enjoy your meal, Neil." With that, the robot handed over the pizza and turned to leave, its metal feet clanging against the polished concrete floor as it made its way down the mega hallway. Neil stood at the door, watching it go, brow slowly creasing into a confused, annoyed, tired frown. "I thought you said it was free," Neil muttered weakly into the darkening hall, closing the door. Neil sat down at his kitchen table and opened the box of pizza, his curiosity getting the better of him. The idea of a new flavor combination was too intriguing to pass up, even at this mystery hour. But as he took the first bite, Neil's face twisted in disgust. The gravy was too salty, the mushrooms were slimy, the hot peppers were overpowering, and the pumpkin was sickeningly sweet. It was a flavor profile that no human being could ever conceivably enjoy. For a moment, Neil was confused. He had always assumed that AIs were infallible when it came to matters of taste and preference. But now, as he struggled to wash the pizza down with bubble-only tea, he began to have his doubts. Maybe, he thought, there was something to be said for the messy, unpredictable nature of human existence. Maybe there was intrinsic value to the imperfections and idiosyncrasies that made us who we were. Human error could bring unexpected joys, but machine certainty left little room for anything but cold, impersonal, sometimes impractical logic. As he forced down the last of the pizza, more willing to eat the idea salad concoction than a demerit point for creating waste, Neil felt an increasing sense of disappointment. He had always been a bit of a skeptic when it came to the power of technology, but now he was beginning to wonder if he had somehow stumbled ass backwards into a legitimate opinion, validated by real-world experience. The sensation felt strange, unnerving. The world was changing. No, it was the same. And he could keep it that way if he just stopped here. He could correct his quality of thinking and realign with social norms. It could still be okay. Neil didn't feel like he could do it anymore, though. He was tired of pretending everything was okay.